In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest is Paul Coffman. He's the co-owner of Canary, a spa and salon in Rochester, New York. And stay tuned for the next edition of It's About Money. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nocon, and thank you for joining us. My guest today is Paul Coffman. He's one of the co-owners of Canary, a salon in Rochester. I invited him to join us today to talk about starting, growing, and maintaining a successful business. So thank you for joining us today, Paul.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So you're one of the three co-owners of the salon, of Spa and Salon.
Yeah.
Would you talk about how it started and how the three of you formed together?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I was getting a haircut with my stylist, and he kept talking about wanting to open up a business. His name is Ben. And I had been working with small businesses as a salesperson for a long time, and I saw a lot of mistakes, and I saw a lot of things that I knew I could do better. And I knew if they could do it, I could do it. Basic mentality. So I went back to Ben one day. He was cutting my hair, and I said, let's do it. It started with an employee manual. That's how it all started. We wrote a 15-page employee manual, and from there we developed into what has become Canary.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
And this is your second location, right?
So this is our second evolution, if you will, of the business. We were just a salon first, just a 700 square foot, 4-chair salon, and now we're a 6,000 square foot spa and salon. So it's been the name Canary has remained the same, but Style Apothecary dropped, and we added on Strathallan. So yeah, so we've evolved a little bit, but the name and the culture is still the same.
So how does it, so you did the employee manual.
Yeah.
What was the next step? How do you market the business?
And then from there, it was a matter of I had to take a leap of faith and quit my job. Thank God they let me go on unemployment to just survive, and that's what I lived off of for 6 months. And we found a location, we found funding, and I knew he had a client base. So he had the thing that's the hardest to do, which was the base, the client base, right? The thing that's going to make my money for me, right? He had the bread and butter because he's from here, and he's developed a relationship with people for the last 25 years. So naturally, he's good. I'm a transplant. I don't have a base here. So I didn't know anyone in town. I had no business starting a business until I met that part of the equation.
Yes.
And then I knew at that point we were going to, I knew we were not going to fail. That was my mentality going in.
So what would you say is like the ingredient that made it take off? Just having the clientele is important because the cash flow would be there.
Two things. It was honestly, we needed money because people want money for things, right? So we needed to buy a whole line of hair care products and shampoos and conditioners and retail and bags and internet, and we needed to have a system that took credit cards, and I mean we used a very basic Square system, but we needed an iPad, and all of that plus that client base was what I knew was going to make it happen.
I see.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to because you transferred the business with an affiliation to a local hotel, which is Strathallan. How did that happen?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of and that's kind of a funny situation. So again, it goes back to the chair, to the salon chair. We had a client sitting in our chair who happened to work at the Strathallan, and she said, "Hey, they're closing the spa. It didn't work out." And I said, "Opportunity, right?" All of a sudden, a light bulb went off, I'd heard of the Strathallan, and I'd heard people talk about it, and my grandmother's little motto, she was a realtor for years, location, 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 was just in the back of my head, right? The old cliche. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot and see what happens. So I picked up the phone, made a phone call. I'm not afraid of making phone calls. I talked to the right guys that own the space. We set up a meeting, and that's kind of how it started.
Oh, wow.
Conversation in December of 2017.
I see.
Yeah.
And so when did the business actually start?
So we started in April of 2015 with LegalZoom, filing our first LLC.
Okay.
And we stuck it out with them for a while until I was able to sort of figure out what I needed to have and how I needed to have all of that stuff sort of filed with the state and the IRS and all that stuff. But it started officially April of 2015. We opened in August of 2015.
I see. So then 2 years later, you started the connection with the hotel. And how was that relationship then?
So, you know what's interesting is, and we'll probably tease this in a little bit, but because of our membership, I don't have to rely, and that's the one thing that the hotel did when they opened the spa, was they opened it to have it as an amenity or an upsell to the hotel client, right? And that idea is simple and pretty basic, and that hotel's always booked. So what happened? What went wrong? And it was a matter of they needed the right team in the space to make it happen. So that relationship has been great. They still give me business all the time, and they refer business over to me, but we don't solely rely on the fact that, oh, we have a hotel and there's people that might need their hair done.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, because that's not really consistent. While they have guests, there's no loyalty.
Exactly.
In terms of the customer base.
Right. So they're more transient population, right? So they're a last-minute nail service. It's a last-minute pedicure, last-minute blowout. Thank you. I'll take the money. Thank you very much.
Right.
But it's not necessarily what's going to keep me and my employees paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then when you made the move, you had to get more capital, right? Because that requires more shares, more of everything. So when you said financing earlier, was that like you got an investor, or did you borrow money from a bank?
So our initial $15,000 loan was actually someone's IRA. They had cashed out part of their 401k for us. She was a retired teacher and cashed out part of her 401k and lent us the $15,000, right?
Wow, okay.
Right. And then from there, we took out about $15,000 in credit card
Oh, sure.
debt.
Okay, which happens a lot.
Right. And so it's about $30,000 combined, plus I cashed out my 401k, so that was another $5,000. Ben had a little bit of money too. So we kind of, very shoestring budget, maybe $35,000, $40,000 is what opened us. When we made that move, it was $100,000 that we needed, and that actually came as a loan from the landlord, from the proprietor of the property.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that worked out.
Yeah, it worked out really well, because there's interest, but it's not the same kind of interest as like a 20% credit card.
Okay,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. There's still interest, and we pay it back with our loan, basically.
I see.
One of the things I knew that we had to do was, I said, we're not going to be able to afford that space with our business model as it is. We were doing $175,000 a year in the beginning, right? That was our best year ever. That building alone, the rent is $10,000 a month, easy for a space like that, right? Somewhere in that ballpark.
Yes,
It's what other spaces like that charge in this market.
I see.
That's something else that we all had to look at. What is Scott Miller paying a month for rent for his space? And what's Del Monte paying a month in rent for space? What are we going to be able to pay it, right? And I said, the only way we can do this is if you give me what I called a sliding scale rent, where I could pay you weekly based on my revenue. So if I had a bad week, I didn't have that $1,700 that you want me to guarantee. I didn't have that every week to give you. But if I did $2,000 that week, or $5,000, or whatever it is, yeah, guess what? I've got that money to get you. I've got that money to pay you. So I didn't want that being held over my head, because they were desperate. They put $3.5 million in that building, and they were losing money hand over fist.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you come up with that model? Is that typical?
Honestly, and it was one of those slick Rick, my father would call it slick Rick, he's like, you're always getting some kind of deal. And I was like, and maybe it didn't make any sense, and maybe it wasn't a smart move, and I'd never heard of anything like that, but I thought, you know what, if they're desperate times call for desperate measures. If they're desperate and we're hungry for an opportunity, as long as we can meet somewhere in the middle, and that was sort of where I started with the negotiation, was you gotta give me a sliding scale. We didn't put any numbers to paper when we first started that conversation, and they looked at me in a very like, what? Confused, like, what do you mean by that? We've never heard of anything like that. But I thought, that's the only way I'm going to be able to do this.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's wonderful. So you have a vision. You kind of know what to ask, how to ask it.
But I didn't, Nannette. Don't let me fool anybody. I withdrew from, I don't even have a college degree. I withdrew from college, which I'm very I regret sometimes, because who knows what would have happened with my life, but as far as the direction it's going in. But I'm safe to say I'm getting myself a paycheck every week, and I'm paying 16 employees, and I've created jobs downtown, and that's what I can be know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why actually I thought it'd be great to have you as a guest to talk about that, because I'm sure it's not easy. You don't just flick a light, switch and like, oh, okay, we're in business now. There's a lot that goes with it,
Yes.
And financing is one of the biggest challenges, and
Yes.
that's really creative of you and wonderful that you worked with the landlord to make that happen.
Yeah, because they were losing money, and they wanted to make us some of their losses. So even if they could break even, I knew they were going to get excited about it.
Sure.
And they loved the opportunity. So I was very happy with it.
And it supports their guests too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it makes everyone sort of look like, we know what we're doing. We got this. We got this.
Right. It's funny, I used to walk down, I still do, East Avenue, my husband and I living downtown, and I would always say, oh, they should just buy this building here, because it's Century Club, and turn it into a spa. And I would say that many years.
Really?
Yeah.
You had the vision.
Well, I just thought the hotel needed a spa, So.
Well, what is a carriage house? I didn't even know. I was like, is this a fancy garage to the main house? I mean, what was its purpose?
Yeah, right. Way back when, all these carriages were stored there.
Right. So that's the garage. That's what I tell people. This was the garage, and that's the main house.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of an auxiliary building.
It is.
It works out.
Which makes our mailing address, ironically, talking about one of the weird quirks of owning a business, we have the same address as the Century Club. So can you imagine when you're first moving in and trying to turn on RG&E and the water and the sewer and internet and everything else?
It was all,
well, where are you located? I'm in an auxiliary building. We don't have anything on file for that. What does that mean? Oh, Nannette.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, just for our guests, our viewers.
Yeah.
So there's a Century Club, which
Yes.
is non-for-profit social club, right? And
Yes.
it was declining in membership.
Yes.
And so then they sold to the Strathallan.
Correct.
There's a carriage house at the back, which
Correct.
is where the spa is.
Correct.
So just to kind of frame all
Sure.
of that. I think they've done a great job beautifying that neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
It's really great for a city, and
Absolutely.
so it's all economic based. So.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So how does it work? So your website says that there are 3 owners. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, so when Ben and I first opened, we opened it just as co-owners, just the two of us, and that's how we were always going to have it. And one of the moves I made was I didn't want to do 50-50, to be honest with you, because I didn't want to carry the burden of the risk if it failed. And he was okay doing that, and it was fine. There was no ego really at play with this. Fast forward to 2018, and we're opening up, and we're like, oh my God, we have 16 employees and 6,000 square feet, and what are we doing? We can't do this by ourselves. Ben also is behind the chair. So he's not available during the day to help me with a phone call from New York State Tax Office or someone coming in who's having a problem parking, whatever, right? He's not available for that. He's doing your hair behind the chair still. So we knew we needed help. So we found someone who we both trusted, who he has known for years and also happens to be very good friends with. Her name is Coral. She grew up and was born and raised right here in Irondequoit, just like him for the most part. And we knew we needed to bring her on, so we did. We did, yeah. So we brought her on as a 3rd owner.
I see. So does she have a specific role?
So we called her the Human Resources Director, but honestly, we haven't really had a need for anything that aggressive, that specific, because we're still pretty family in feeling and sort of how we run things. And if there's one thing I hate, it's red tape. So I didn't want any red tape, but I recognize at the same time the sensitivities to needing some of those things in place, to have someone to go to, because I'm not that great talking to employees all the time, because I don't have patience. You know what I mean? And I don't have patience for nonsense. So when they want to come and talk to me about something that it's like every day, literally my motto is, can we go one day without not complaining? One day. One day. And now I totally understand what it is to own a bigger business and have all these people around you that are just constantly, it's almost like it's just their world, right? And you're managing their space. Hold on a second. This is a team thing, right? We're all in this together. And I'm getting 5, 6, 7 phone calls in the morning from 4 or 5 different employees with all sorts of different issues. So I knew I needed help.
Sure,
I knew I needed help.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it's funny, my husband always says you could give somebody a gold brick and they'll still complain about it. It's too heavy, it's too big, it's too bright.
Yes, that literally, that is so true. And I find that my demeanor in public has changed dramatically because of it. Because now that I'm so in tune with just hearing complaints or issues or problems, I can't not hear those things, right? At a restaurant, at a bar, at a club, at a whatever, I hear it, and then I want to fix it. I just want to fix it and move on. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I gotta fix it, and that's a lot of what I do all day.
Oh,
Fix and move, fix and move. You know?
Oh, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
We'll take a quick break. My guest is Paul Coffman, co-owner of Canary. We'll be right back.
We are reaching you to inform you that IRS is filing a lawsuit against you.
If your phone rings and the caller ID reads IRS, do not answer your phone. Scammers try many tactics. They may prey on your fears and threaten you with deportation, arrest, or loss of your driver's license. They may speak your language to gain your trust. Do not believe them. They may ask you to pay by prepaid card or wire transfer. Don't do it. Do not give money. It's a scam. The IRS will never ask for payment by wire transfer, prepaid, or credit card. Whatever the scenario, remember two things: hang up and report the call.
And we're back. I'm Nannette Nocon. It's about money, and my guest is Paul Coffman, co-owner of Canary. Thanks again for being here, Paul.
Absolutely.
It's been full of wonderful information about starting a business,
Yeah.
growing it, maintaining it.
Yeah.
So tell me, what has been the primary driver of raising your business in a level that you feel it's sustainable?
So one of the things that Ben came to us, my business partner, and he said to me, Paul, we have to have a membership. And I was like, what are you talking about? Everyone's got a membership and no one cares about membership. Like, they do, but they don't, right? And the cancellation rate and the attrition rates are so high. What's the point of putting all the work into something when someone's going to leave in 30 days anyway? He took a model from another business similar to what we do, and we sort of Canary-fied it and made it our own. And when he talked about it and told me about it, I thought, this is not going to do, what is this even, this isn't going to make sense to anybody. And Nannette, from day one, we had probably 15 people sign up that day, maybe more, I don't even remember. And it was something that, if we didn't have that model in place, and sometimes in some of the lean times in the first year in the new location, we wouldn't have survived. You know, and I think that's, you say, what's the main driving force? It's the membership for anything, really, in this case. And it's interesting how it's become almost trendy to have a membership, but it seems to be something that people really respond to. And that's been the driving force.
Because there's a lot of businesses, you know, there's the delivery company
Right.
that delivers, they have a membership with that. There's people who join clubs where you could have clothes delivered, rent clothes, deliver food. So there's all these ongoing revenue stream.
Right.
So kind of like subscription based.
Exactly.
That's really what people are looking for.
Exactly. And what I loved about it, what people love about this is they're getting a less expensive service, and the money that we're taking from you is just going to pay for that service. So it's not a fee. And I thought to myself, and try saying that quickly at a desk with 5 people wanting to cash out and the phone's ringing and I have an employee who's upset about the bathroom and whatever. Try explaining all of that in 5 seconds, you know what I mean?
Right.
But as soon as you say you get a cheaper service and it's your money, well, then why wouldn't I do it?
So how does that work? So people pay a certain amount, it's automatic.
Yeah, so we have this lovely little brochure. Yes, we still have brochures, but we also have it on our website. And basically what it says is, if you give me $60 a month, right, on whatever day you sign up, that's the other thing I liked about it too, is if I signed up on the 2nd, the 3rd, or the 13th, that's the day that the money's going to come out. And that was important to me because they kept saying, do you want it on the 15th, the 30th, the 1st, the last business day? I was like, let's not put all our eggs in one basket. Let's have a nice even flow of money every day, every week, so that I can collect on that money every day. So if we have a bad day on a Monday or a Sunday, well, we're not open Monday, but if we have a bad day on a Sunday or a Tuesday or whatever, I still made $1,000 on the back end and no one even knew about it, right? So I'm taking $60 a month from you, taking. I'm putting it in a reserve account for you. And then when you decide to come in for your next service, which could be tomorrow, that day, or next week, I'm going to let you take that $60 that you gave me, and I'm going to give it right back to you, put it towards your service.
As a credit.
As a credit.
But what if I didn't go the 1 month?
So then it just accrues basically, and what we said is we want a minimum of 90 days, because if you're not going to come after 90 days, we're probably not going to see you that often. And the membership wouldn't make any sense for you, then why would you do it?
Right.
Come every so often and treat yourself, sure, I'll take the money. But the membership is for someone who understands the value of wellness. So if you want to come in and get a massage once a month, this is the way to do it. I'm going to give you a better rate on it. And anyway, it accrues, and then after say 2 months of not coming in or 3 months of not coming in, you now have $120 or $180 to put towards your next service.
Yeah.
So
In a lot of ways, actually, as a financial advisor, I help people manage their resources. And for somebody who's budgeting their money, they could say, well, I'll just go every other month or something like that, but they're saving, so it's not a big flux of withdrawal from their credit card or whatever else that they're paying.
people love, women especially, because women spend a lot of money on their hair. And that was how we started the business, was with the salon. And what I love the most is at the end of a service and it comes up to $230 and I get to say, you have $180 in your account, so I'm only charging you $40 today for your service. Really? That's great. I didn't even realize. Like it's always a surprise. And guess what ends up happening? They leave a bigger tip because now they feel less invaded. Their pocketbook feels less invaded, and now they're leaving even a better gratuity for the service provider. Yes. So they're winning, I'm winning, and the client feels like they've saved a ton of money, even though I've kind of already taken that money from you, in a sense. Yeah.
So you started out, you said the first day or first week had 15 members.
Yes.
What is the goal?
So right now my goal, because I knew we were going to hit a ceiling, that building can't probably do more than $2 million a year in services, just given the actual space we're given, right? With 4 rooms. So it could never do more than $2 to $2.5 million total as a business. Capacity. Yeah, right. This year, and right now, I just did my numbers last night for the show. We're at 401,000 from Jan 1 to May 31, right? So we're on par to do with the holidays. Keep in mind it's going to give us an extra 100, maybe about $900,000 this year, which is great.
Yes.
Those are strong numbers for us. Being that our best year was 175,000, yes. Right? So given all of that. I think that the membership is going to just continue to grow, and my goal, given that, is right now 500, but I'm kicking myself in the foot by saying that because I bet you I could do 1,000. But 500 is my goal right now, and we're at 467.
Oh, great. That's congratulations.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you very
much. So you're
much.
really focused and energized and all this. And sometimes business owners, try to do everything themselves, right? The talent and then the business manager and all that. And that can be quite challenging.
Absolutely.
That would have probably been hard to do, and maybe why Ben didn't start on his own.
Correct. Correct. It's almost, and by the way, what we're doing every day, so it's not that we sit at a desk and we have a phone, and when we hang up the phone, we're done with that conversation, right? The job that we're all doing in that space is I'm bringing you in, and you might be there for an hour, 2 or 3 hours. Not only do I have to hold your hand the whole time, I have to do something to you that makes you feel good, and then make sure that when you leave, you're happy, you're satisfied, and that you want to come back again. Because, right, penny wise and pound foolish. I don't just want you to come in because it's pretty, and hopefully I see you again in 6 months.
Sure.
Come in the first time, feel welcome. Right. We're not snooty, we're everybody's salon and spa. We're an urban spa and salon destination, so we're downtown, in a sense. And that means all walks of life are welcome, right? And because of that, and because of the membership, I just think that going forward right now, not having another person on my side like a Coral or a Ben, this would have been an impossible feat. I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
It'd be harder to focus.
Absolutely, because I want all of those little triggers met when you come in, right? I want to know that you're coming in for a 3.5-hour highlight and haircut service. That's a long time for someone to be sitting somewhere. We don't just leave you and then walk away. There's a whole song and dance that goes around that, sure. Right? Entertaining you, making sure you're drinking. You go to the bathroom. I'm talking to you about the membership. I'm talking to you about other things that we offer. Did you need your nails done? You know what I mean? Little things, without feeling aggressive and salesy, without feeling too pushy.
So really, it's a total experience. So what you're finding is that when you bring in customers, that you want to give them the experience so they would want to come back.
Correct.
So from a business perspective, it's not just giving the best of something,
No.
but it's making the customer
Right.
feel welcome, feel like they
Right.
belong, and
Exactly.
that they would want to come back.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
How many
great.
times do you hear those cliches? Call us for all your plumbing needs. Well, what are all my plumbing needs? How cliche? Call me for all your financial needs. Well, what are all my financial? I don't even know what my needs are. You know what I mean? I'm going to pull that out of you in a comfortable atmosphere, so that not only do you feel like they actually care about me, but that they want to come back and keep spending those dollars, so that we can make $1 million.
So tell me about the quality of the service providers, right? Because there's always innovation, even with hair and things like that. Right?
Yeah.
So how does everybody keep up, and how do you maintain that competitive edge?
Sure. So none of the people that I have on staff have been doing their craft for less than, say, 5 years, for the most part, right?
Experience.
Yes. So I'm not taking any. We shy away from taking a newbie out of school, or someone who's fresh out of school, in either massage, nails, hair, waxing, facials, aesthetics. I'd rather you come in after you've been a couple places and you understand sort of how it works in this market, because every market's different. But we actually set aside $1,000 per employee for education. So we know that each employee, because they're going to come to me and say, I want to take this class, I want to take this, I want to get this enhancement, I want to learn this thing. We set aside $1,000 for every employee every year, and it's completely reimbursed to them. So I've already done this with about half the staff, and they've all gone to different classes. I'm sending some of my hairstylists to the Kuhn Academy in Georgia and Atlanta. Some of my massage therapists have been taking classes on CBD and its enhancements and how it works with the body. My estheticians have been doing upgrades on classes on what they call dermaplaning, so these are additional services that we offer. And it's just been, it's been like one of those things where they understand the need to stay, because most of my staff also, by the way, are under 30 years old. So they know cutting edge is everything, and they all have the technology to prove it. But then the service has to equal that as well. So, for us, it's the education, really setting it aside for them. And also, we also have monthly meetings. So every 30 days, we sit down and talk in a room in a group setting. And yes, it's annoying, and not everyone wants to come on a Monday for an hour and a half and talk about our salon and spa. But guess what? It's important, because it keeps us all on the same page. And that's also cutting edge, because a lot of places you go, they might feel very disjointed or disconnected. And a client picks up on that immediately. So, that's how we do it.
Actually, in my business as well, I have a weekly meeting, and so everybody's on the same page, right? So if something needs to get fixed, you got to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it just festers, and then it's not good. The clients have to feel good when they come in, so all
Exactly.
that stuff. That's great. Do you have an agenda that you go through?
We actually do. We actually have it's usually, so a short meeting is about 17 bullet points, a long meeting is about 30. And we go through, it's just something that it's always trended that way. And I'm actually, so Ben, being a stylist and not being very corporate himself, hadn't had structure like that ever. He hadn't seen an agenda. Well, he had, I'm sure, but like it wasn't one of those settings where any place he's ever worked, because he was a renter for a long time, which means he was just kind of a 1099 employee. He'd come and go. There was never meetings and agendas or anything like that. The Sunday before the meeting, we sit down, we'll spend a couple hours going over the agenda. I go over all the numbers with everybody, I let everyone know where we're at. That's something that I learned from my previous employer, the transparency and communication, and just where are we at in sales? How's everybody doing, right? Talk about it. It's not a secret, right? If we're gonna get to where we want to get to, we got to talk about it. Everyone's got to know where we're at. So when we say we're on the same page, it's not just like these are the things that we dictate to you, but it's here's the struggles that we had this last month. Do you agree? And here's the things that we want to get to, and here's the next goal that we want to get to. Is everyone on the same page with that, right?
Sure.
That's kind of how our meetings go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because you don't want conversation on the side.
No.
Kind of, does not support the idea that we're going in one direction.
Exactly.
A certain direction, and
Exactly.
you have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
That's great. So is there, do the employees have, what is the incentive to stay longer? There's a lot of movement in your business, right?
Yes. So, you know what? People become service providers for a lot of different reasons, and for most of them, they just want to find a place they can hang their hat and feel comfortable and supported, because there's not a lot of that in this type of business, right? So there's a lot of salons and spas that don't have that kind of culture, and because of that, people feel very unaware of what the next move is or what's happening next. And I've heard horror stories where they showed up the next day for their shift and the door was locked because they were closed, or and totally unannounced, you know. And there's all sorts of like sort of rare situations like that. And what we offer and what we try and incentivize our employees with are things like, we actually just started talking about paid time off. That's unheard of in salons and spas. We're also thinking about bringing in a 401k plan if I can afford to maintain it. I did it once and it was a mistake. I want to do it again and see if this time it's not so much of a mistake. It cost me more than I had in our balance, right? So I was like, this is ridiculous. This isn't working out in our benefit. But we might bring that back. So PTO, 401k, and then the other thing that we're trying to investigate, but I don't know if I can swing it right now, is health insurance. I really want to offer. So what I did is I brought in AFLAC. I brought in a third party. I don't know what they're defined as, but I brought them in, and 5 of my 15, 16 employees have taken out policies for themselves, supplemental policies,
Great.
should something happen. But yeah, so those are the 3 things that we're focused on.
That's great. Thank you so much. I wish I had more time. Very exciting. Thank you. You've been very informative. I wish you the very best, you and your partners. And my guest today is Paul Coffman, and he's the co-owner of Canary. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Nannette Nocon.